Hello everyone. We have a game against Grenoble, rated 1735. With the black pieces, he puts two pawns in the center, which is principled, and we're going to play a Philidor against him. Okay, he defends with the bishop as opposed to the knight. So now there is no queen trade line, because the bishop blocks the line of sight of the queens. He also doesn't take, he supports his center with c3, taking away the square from the knight. Okay, it's another method of development, I guess. We want to play bishop e7. Nice, calm developing move, preparing castling. And what is white going to do? White has options, and white goes for the space gaining line. It's a little weird to play c3 to support your center and then move your center. That doesn't really make sense to me, but I'm going to immediately challenge the center with c6. Breaking down. Like, he just spent a turn on a pawn move, not a piece move. I'm going to break it down. He takes, and I recapture with the pawn, covering this square, preparing d5 in the future. So we have a nice center. We have two pawns to his one. He goes bishop e3. What does this threaten? Nothing. It's just a developing move. The downside is whenever you put your bishop here and you haven't played any of these moves, we can improve a piece for free by bringing the knight to this square, threatening to win the bishop pair and the dark squares, which would be very bad for him. So he ignores us and develops his queen to a square that stares into his pawns and lets us ruin his pawn structure and get the bishop pair. What is this guy doing? Okay, so now queen b6, developing move with a threat. We like to develop with threats when possible. Do we want to provoke something like g3? Weakening the light squares, potentially. Then we can drop our bishop back and hit the pawn that way. Let's do that. Let's improve this piece since it's staring here. This is bad for him because we have a light square bishop that can take advantage near his king. Now we get to go here, which is the improvement from e7 to g5. This is the square we knew we wanted it. We just provoked this on purpose. Now we're attacking this. We can always add a second attacker with queen b6, which also pressures this pawn, so his queen might be overloaded. When he develops his knight at some point, okay, so he protects the pawn with the queen, but as I just mentioned, his queen might be overloaded. So what if we take the pawn anyway and he takes back? Not now. You know, in my head I already played queen b6, and I was going to say if you take the bishop, queen takes, you can try to win the rook, but our queen's not on b6 yet. I'm skipping steps. Let's do queen b6 first. I'm hallucinating, and now we're hitting this twice and have the pressure. And so I really don't like white's position. I think it's strategically terrible. I don't know how bad. I don't know if it's considered lost yet, but black's clearly better, I can tell. Double isolated pawns. This is not the Philidor setup, so these pawns are weak, not strong. This weakens the light squares. His king's still in the center. Your knights are supposed to be the first things you developed. He hasn't moved any of them. We can castle at any moment, and he can't even come near our king. So he develops a knight, which hangs this pawn. His idea is if we take with the bishop, he's going to go knight c4, double hitting the queen, the bishop, and defending the square, and we would lose some material and this square. So we don't want that to happen. So instead, we can take with the queen. So he doesn't have this move, or the move doesn't do anything, doesn't win any material. So he tries to hit the bishop, the defender of the queen. But I mean, what's the drawback of this move? Every time you move a pawn, which squares does it weaken? This square. Can we use that? Yes. That was a really bad move by him. He could have not equalized, but he could have helped his position out by trading queens or just doing something normal. Even still playing knight c4, trying to force the queen trade and come with some threats. But he didn't do that. He did this. And this is a terrible move, h4. And what's the drawback of moving your king to d1? It lines up with the queen. As mentioned, his light squares were weak. The queen protects this. We don't care our bishop's hanging. This also protects this. The queen is pinned, so we could queen takes bishop is a move. Right? So you have to notice everything in the position. Queen takes bishop is legal and doesn't hang the queen. So black is completely winning. White just collapsed after h4. This move just ruined the entire position. And this 1735 just like made quick moves that were to my favor every time. He kind of just gave the game away, quickly. What did he just take? Okay, so queen takes bishop. So we'll just take a queen with check because does that need to explanation? We're going to throw in this check. Whatever, I'll just take the rook. I don't need to look for mate. My bishop's hanging. I'm up 13 points of material. Come on, Grenoble. You can do it. You know where the button is. You know where the button is. There it is. I knew you could find it. So let's go over the game because we love our Philidors. So let's see. 2 inaccuracies, 0 mistakes, 0 blunder, 93. Yeah, but this guy made it super easy, so I'm not surprised. He defends the pawn with the bishop, which is still fine. Now when we play a5, there's just no queen trade, which, can't hurt us. And then we develop, prepare king safety, and then development and center. Breaking down his center, enhancing our center. Forced move, we take with the pawn to enhance our center. And now we move the same piece twice because he made a mistake. You never, in any of these, not these openings, in any opening, whenever they put their bishop in an attackable square with a knight like that, you always consider that knight jump and try to win the bishop pair. That's a thing. So people usually prepare bishop e3 with a pawn here or a pawn here or a bishop here or something that stops the knight from taking this. Or if the knight does go here, they move the bishop, right? They don't just leave it there. So I try to take advantage immediately instead of castling because this looks like the first move he made that I can take an advantage of. And you see the engine wants you to go back home, but he just leaves it here. Of course I'm going to take it. I win the bishop pair. Now this huge diagonal and this one he can't do anything with, and I have 2 pieces that can do it. That's just really bad for him. He also double isolates his pawns. It's just terrible. It's already completely losing, minus 2.5, so positionally lost already. That's how bad it is, and that's what I kind of want you to see, how weak these dark squares are, and he has no dark square bishop. We provoke this and go here, and then we just apply more pressure, develop for free, probably the most active move in the position. And then we take this. You don't have to. Like I said, you're positionally winning. So the engine says you can just bring your queen back to the normal Philidor square, which is c7, and then develop your knight, your bishop, and do normal stuff. But as far as I can tell, this trade, if he takes, is completely winning for black and makes the game easier. So, like if he takes, you take, and how can you like? I don't know. Black just looks way better. What does the engine say? Okay, minus 1.2. If white plays perfectly, you can just jettison it. If he throws in the check, you can hit this. So let's say, well, there's two moves. First, I want to check jettison. He throws in the check, you hit the knight. He hits the bishop. You just retreat the bishop, and then the knight just desperados because it's stuck. And then white's losing. And if you just retreat the, oops, if you just retreat the bishop to protect the pawn, he's going to kick it. And then you go for that anyway. Okay. Yeah, so it's really bad for white, even if he plays perfectly, which he's not going to. So we take with the queen, and I thought he was going to take. If he doesn't take, it's just way, way, way worse for him. And this move just clearly loses. It goes to -5 because of queen takes g3. So that was really dumb. Followed by bishop g4, and he sacks the queen. There's nothing else to look at after he loses his queen. I mean, so the game was fine for him until, like, putting your bishop here is dumb. It's an inaccuracy. And then here he still had chances, like, to try to hold the game if he queen trades, but this is his big mistake, and h4 was just a lash out, you know, tilt move. And you guys, what I want you to understand from this game is how this one move changes the pawn structure, and that just loses the game. Like the undefending of this pawn with a pawn loses the game because of this, and how if you just don't do that, your position's kind of fine. Like if you just develop your piece, and I trade, and you take either way, like sure it's still -2, but you can try to play this. But the second you move this pawn, that's just super dumb. You have to consider the weaknesses you're creating when you move pawns. Because then you can just avoid stuff like this and not lose games. So be careful with your pawn pushes. Take advantage when you can trade your knight for a bishop. Get the bishop pair. Simple things to keep in mind to guide you through your games. Good luck. Goodbye.